All right.
Well, I think it works.
Well, I can't turn it off now. Okay, I like that.
What did you suddenly discover?
That's the University Police Department's, what do you call it, mime thing, where they mouth the words to it, you know.
Oh, karaoke.
Yeah, that's.
Pantomime. Okay.
They did good, too.
Whatever makes your boat float. Who's in the movie? Oh, guess what they're remaking for the 4th time?
What?
A Star is Born.
Who are they doing it this time?
I don't know. Some friend of Terry's was telling her. The last one was Barbara Streisand and Chris Christopherson. The one before that was Judy Garland and James Mason. And the one before that was, I don't even remember.
I saw the Judy Garland one, too. And somebody posted on Facebook, Chris Christopherson, when he had his religious experience and did that, I can't remember the name of the song. Anyway, it was really interesting. He said he didn't have any religion.
He's going to be at Newberry Opera House.
He said something happened to me that day. It was interesting. I read it. What we gonna put in the tab? I read the material.
Well, the planning commission has
Yeah.
came up with all the ins and outs, but they settled on the map.
And I think it's a good idea.
But my map, but they were small. Whatever the color, but they want to discuss that and so on. And then once it's done, they'll kind of say, okay. Now, once they do the overlay, they can still take that and make it zoning. So somebody else can put it on their property. They can do that, but the overlay will go, say, right here. My original thing was just do it around the park, over there and down there. Super small, because you got bigger up here. Then more people agree with it, everybody wants it. Always pair all the. And I've talked to most of them over there, and either got a room or Spanish good, that's why I tried to minimize, but none of them were real negative. But I think it will be, because they want to go over to the middle, and everything came out. Burns down, and they rebuild, they got different. I'm like, no, let's not stick it.
Mr. Mayor, it's 7 o'clock.
I will call to order the Tuesday, August 21st, regular meeting of Irmo Council. Okay, I got all that. And I will recognize Councilwoman Condon to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation.
To the
To the flag
of the United States of America,
and
to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Lord, bless us tonight. Give us the wisdom and the grace to do the town's business in the best way possible. Bless our community, bless our citizens. Make us good in your eyes. And we ask this in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
Next item on the agenda is the reading of the minutes from August the 7th. Is there a motion for approval as written?
I make a motion.
Second.
Any discussions? Seeing none, all in favor then? Oh,
Did you vote in favor of selling the little building?
no, Yeah, it was 3-2.
It was 3-2.
That what's in here?
Yeah, that's the only thing I noticed, and I remember asking you, why did you do that? But anyway.
And let's see, any discussion, any more
No,
discussion?
that's it.
All in favor then of the minutes being approved as written, do so with show of hand. And next is the administrative briefing. Mr. Brown, anything you'd like to add?
Yes, sir. Two things. We received 2 items yesterday in the mail. One was a first bill from Alvin S. Glenn since they increased the per day per diem for prisoners, $71, and the bill was $4,100 for the month of July.
4,100?
Yes, ma'am. We also received a letter from Sunoco. They are raising our recycle rates to $55 a ton. We're currently paying $25 a ton. That becomes effective September 1st.
And how much was it
65.
before the 25? Wasn't it 0?
We're paying $25 now for recycling because
But
it
before
doesn't
that-
matter which county it came out of to go into Sunoco. And they're going to $55
But before the 25? Didn't it used to cost nothing?
a long time ago.
Did they give a reason for,
Yeah, they can't handle single stream recycling. It's just too much of a burden on them. They can't get rid of
They
it.
got to sort all that stuff out.
is there an answer? Is there anything we can do to lower that?
Oh, lower it, no, but there are options that council will have available. I mean, do away with recycling, pass the cost on to the residents. I mean,
Yeah, I've asked
just-
Bob to put it on our next agenda so we can
Okay.
kind of talk
Okay.
about it and see
Yep.
That's a lot of money.
what to do.
It's a big jump.
Well, all those places they ain't got no market for it anymore.
I know, I
It's
know.
costing a ton to sort it.
And Sunoco's the only game in town, right?
Sir?
They're the only game in town.
Right
correct?
now, that's correct.
They're the only game?
Only recycling game for a
Not-
single stream. Again, all of our stuff goes in the one garbage can, one truck.
That Rotten Tomatoes place is not,
No.
that's the name of it.
Tomato palms.
Tomato palms.
Oh, Rotten
yes.
Tomatoes, whatever.
But they only pick up like offices and stuff.
Correct. They're just small area pickups, not something like 5,000 houses. They're not.
Okay. Okay, we need to think about that.
Yeah.
And any questions of Mr. Brown on anything in the briefing? Next is the code enforcement update.
Good evening, council. Hope everyone's doing well. Brief synopsis real quick at the Irmo Police Department. We had employment. We've got everyone pretty much ready to go on employment. We've got one that dropped out a conditional offer of employment yesterday, but we'll have to go out and try to fill his spot. But once we do that, we'll be full staffed. Fingers crossed, whatever you can cross, hopefully that will occur. We had a really great turnout for National Night Out in the community park. Gave a good run for the money for the Okra Strut, I think.
You did.
It was pretty solid. So we raised almost $2,500. We're giving that money back to the schools in our community, not in the way of funds, but in the way of supplies. So we're really excited about that. We've got a couple other agendas that the police department's working on to raise money for Shot with the Cop in December, but that's a little way off. So, all right, July code enforcement update from the Community Service Division, and we're going into the breakdown for July. Unsightly conditions were 66, and you see all were for high grass. Conditions for collections 10, vehicle violations 10, business checks 15, signs removed 107 signs were removed, animal complaints 2, there was a pig and a dog. Zoning violations 3, miscellaneous complaints was 18. When asked about that, he said those were the complaints from citizens that they've received, about 18. So they went out and investigated those complaints from citizens.
Is that citizens that like this anonymous complaints or?
Sure, through the website, through phone calls to the police department, can you check this, can you check that? Not all of them are going to be complaints. Not all of them are going to be enforced, but they go out and look at those 18 complaints from citizens.
Do you keep a record of the person making that complaint?
I don't, but I can ask.
The reason why I'm asking is that, I mean, if somebody wants to know if somebody's making an anonymous complaint about them, do they get to know who's that person?
Well, if it's anonymous on the website, you don't have to put your name, so we wouldn't have that information.
If somebody's calling in, do they leave their name?
I can find
The
out.
complaint?
I can find out for you.
Caller ID.
So on phone call complaints,
Or emails, or whatever how y'all get it.
emails, you want to know if a name is left.
The complaint, yeah.
Yep. Okay. Continuation, illicit discharge 1 and the newest sewer ordinance 7 by Director Whit-Klein. Tickets issued were 5, 1 for illicit discharge, 1 for unsightly conditions, 1 running at large for a dog, 1 unprotected tree, and 1 littering. Front yard parking update, we, since August the 1st, 114 residents have been issued abatement notices up till the 18th. 2 residents have been ticketed for not being within compliance with the grace period, and 42 properties have been approved for pads by the town administrator.
Is that, under 114, is that, are those rental properties included with that?
No, sir. These are all, if they were rental properties, they were already been in violation of the ordinance.
Okay, so out of the 522, we only got to 114 so far?
Yeah, it's the 18th day of August. And code enforcement has been actively helping out with patrol division, who's been short this couple of months. We've had a lot of guys. Everybody likes to take vacation in the summertime. I don't know what's wrong with the winter. Why can't they go to the beach when it's January? But I don't know. Probably cheaper rates. But as it is, people like to spend their family vacation times in the summer, right before school. So, of course, everyone's taking vacation. But code enforcement stepped up, been working night shift on the road, answering calls for complaints from citizens, you know, handling domestic violence calls, doing everything the police do.
I mean, code enforcement's doing that?
Absolutely. We're stepping up as police officers, too.
Yeah, but you got one of them that don't have a
Montgomery's
weapon.
only working Monday through Friday, day
Okay.
shift, doing front yard parking.
Okay,
So we're lucky to have him. We're really lucky to have him right now.
okay.
He stepped up. He's done a great job for us. He had some little back surgery thing today. So, but he's doing well. So
And Bob, you approving all these parking pads, these 114 parking pads?
42. But everything's looking good. Been riding around the neighborhoods. Communities are looking good. I'll give you that. They're looking pretty good. So.
Any questions?
Thank you, and Mr.
Thank
Walker,
you.
we'll get that answer to you.
Thank you, sir.
And let's see. Next is the amendments to the agenda. Any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, next is consideration of communication, and I think Jada Powell wanted to come and give us a presentation. Hey there.
Hello.
Ada Powell, as you know, this is Deanna Kuhn. She'll be helping me. So I came to present this to y'all. I want to, October 27th, have your permission in the town park in one of the parking lots to do a trunk or treat. Now, no electricity required. It will be roped off. It'll be limited to 25 vehicles. Everyone is to bring their own candy, individually wrapped, no homemade goods. All the cars must be registered to participate. I mean, it's really just something for the kids to do. And it's my birthday, and there's nothing better than seeing 300 smiles on my birthday. So I'm giving up my birthday, hoping y'all will do this for me. So I would appreciate it if you allow this to happen. We'll give out probably a gift card to the best dressed vehicle. I invite the police department to dress a vehicle, y'all to dress a vehicle, anyone who wants to, if you're the first 25. But anyway, I appreciate your time and hearing me talk about this. So, any questions? And there's plenty of time, too, to edit this if y'all see something that needs to be changed on the registration. That it? That's it for me. Any questions, or can y'all even ask questions?
No, it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I think the only thing, council too, I think Bob wanted just to know, because he's gonna, I don't call it reserve, but to block off that picnic shelter so nobody will reserve it and then want parking and be a conflict. So he's gonna make sure that's, whatever you call it, off the books.
We're all coming.
I hope so. I really hope so. I invited Irmo Fire out to judge the cars so that we have nothing to do with it. My brother-in-law happens to be Captain Powell, so he's agreed to it. So they'll come out and join us.
Good.
So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And next is Miss Buck with the Keep the Midlands Beautiful.
Good evening. I'm Jacqueline Buck. I'm the Executive Director with Keep the Midlands Beautiful. I wanted to thank Bob Brown for bringing that happy news about Sunoco just before I got up here to talk. Those rates being increased. Appreciate that, Bob. Yeah. Great. Right. Well, certainly there's both of the counties, accepting they have their waste streams, and also, have Pratt Recycling, just off the top of my head, because this is the first time I'm hearing about these huge increases for the municipalities. So rotten tomatoes or tomato palms or whatever you'd like to call them, Councilwoman Condon, has been purchased by another owner. So they are working more in the business community.
Okay.
I'm not sure the capacity of what he is doing, but it's worth a look-see to see.
Well, he called me when
Okay.
we were and he wanted our business, and we
Right.
had already awarded the contract. So
Right. Certainly with he has upgraded and gone into, and there's also, a couple of other private vendors out there, Bruce Johnson and some other things. So if I can get some other materials together that may help the town in that regard. But that's not actually what I'm here to speak of. I wanted to just give you a quick update on Keep the Midlands Beautiful. For the past year, we have been busy working, getting grants, and doing a lot of litter pickup. As you'll see, as you go down towards Saluda Park, the entrance, you'll now see some beautiful crepe myrtle trees that align the across from Comfort Care. There's about 35 crepe myrtle trees that were part of a TD Bank grant that Keep the Midlands Beautiful received. And they have been put there, they're large trees, to stop the illegal dumping that was happening there. You go to the Bush River Recycling Center, and they're not going to take your refrigerator with Freon in it. So you happily go down the road and take that left-hand corner and dump your refrigerator off on that nice little setting there. We've made that not possible anymore. And we've also made it not possible for the large semi-trucks to park in that area because it's now lined and blocked by these beautiful crepe myrtle trees. And when we put them in, they were large enough that it blocked that. We've put 250 trees up into Melvin Park. We did a riparian grant to help with the erosion downtown in Columbia. And just telling you some of these things so you know that we're not sitting in our office not doing anything. We had 5,243 volunteers come through our office this last year, and estimated about 211,000 pounds of trash that were picked up from the roadways, and that's generally from our Adopt a Highway program. I'm still desperately trying to find someone to adopt Irmo Drive. We did do a pickup on Irmo Drive in the spring. Thank you, Councilman Waits and Councilman Pouliot for coming out for that. But it needs somebody that takes over full time. I've asked the Chamber of Commerce to take it over, but they said they had enough service projects. I'm asked, the Rotary clubs around here already do different roads in this area, so maybe the Optimist Club will be more optimistic about it. But we are looking for for many years, over 20-something years, the ladies, the Oakerstrut ladies did that road, but it just became, because it was a more dangerous road, it doesn't have much of a shoulder. They decided when it got down to be 3 or 4 of them, it was just too much for them. In December 15th, we had an electrical fire and we lost everything at Keep the Midlands Beautiful. The building still stands because it was a 1938 built hardy brick bungalow. And so it still has the roof and the brick and mortar. And so we are trying desperately to get that redone, but as you may know, if you've dealt with insurance companies, we have not yet to remove a board, remove a window, or do anything to that building, and we're currently renting, which puts a huge burden on a small 501c3. But hopefully in the next 2 weeks we will get underway. That's only a mere 10 months from the actual fire date, and me banging a lot of heads together, but we are hopefully going to get that up and going. And right now, for the next 30 days, I do have a matching donor who is matching any funds that we do receive into our coffers to help us get that project completed. So I just wanted to let you know that coming up for recycling, we have had quite a few recycling events around Irmo in the last few months. The one that is coming up and will be held in Irmo High School parking lot will be October 20th. And it will be from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. The following items will be available to be dropped off. All your electronics, that's computers, printers, TVs, microwaves, phones, and anything really with a plug. We're asking that you limit your items to 8. Now, when I say that, I'm saying Benedict College showed up with a trailer full of all of their old computers. So we were, that's not what we want. This is for citizens. We did take them for Benedict College because we had the room, and they're being recycled anyway. So my thought is they're not taking the place of what citizens were going to do. So we may as well help out the college. So. Shred will be there, limited 5 boxes, again, of household. Don't show up with if you're a CPA, your taxes, or if you're an attorney, don't show up with all your attorney records. Appliances, scrap metal, bicycles, anything that you have that's scrap metal laying around the house. That'll be available. And also, we partner with South Carolina Ag, and this is one of the big things because we don't do this at most of the events that we are at, where we have the household hazardous waste with South Carolina Department of Ag, where they come in, and if you're a farmer anywhere in the state, you can bring your items to this location, which really is a wonderful opportunity for us to get these hazardous materials out of, back into the hands of someone that's going to recycle them properly or get rid of them properly. So they'll be there for pesticides and household waste as well. So this is a combined effort. We really always have such a great turnout, as you know. Last year, we collected over 6,000 pounds of metal. Tires will be welcome, so bring out your tires, 540 tires. Electronics, we had 32,360 pounds of electronics. So you think that you're done with all those huge TVs, and then yet here they keep coming. 5,700 pounds of paper and 3,040 pounds of household hazardous waste and pesticides at the Irmo location. And other than the one that they have at the fairground for Richland County residents, which is open from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, this is the largest one that we have in the Midlands here in Irmo. So again, it's great to have it here. It's open to both Lexington, Richland County residents, and actually I'm looking at my numbers here. We had somebody come in from Lawrence County and Newberry, which is not a big deal, but we had a total of 813 cars come through last year. So that is mine. Also, you do have your flyer that I handed out to you about the gala. It's going to be a little bit earlier this year, November 16th. So we will be happy to have we're partnering with Farm to Table, which is a local wonderful food resource. Kristen Nemi runs Bourbon downtown, if you're familiar with that. It's going to be delicious food, lots of fun, and we expect you to be there in all of your glory. Is there any questions for me?
What do you do? We have an increase in our recycling costs. What do y'all do with all your recycling stuff?
From these events?
Yeah.
We have these are paid vendors that come. So for our electronics, we have a contract with a vendor that comes from out of state. They go, all of our shredding is a contract with the shred company, so they take it to either Pratt Recycling or Sunoco. South Carolina Ag, the scrap metal, all will go to, they flip off, whether it's Richland County or Lexington County. And so it's year by year, but, you know,
So the plastic, you know, like our recycling is plastic, cardboard, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. You would take that too, right?
We at this event, we will not take cardboard and we don't take plastic.
Oh, okay.
This is not a household recycling event. We'll take paper, all your paper for shredding. Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, if it's in file folders, that's fine. But yeah, that, you know, is up to the Shred With Us. They take it either to Pratt Recycling, which is local, or to Sunoco, and that is their choice, whether or not Pratt's open on Saturday or Sunoco's open on Saturday. But Pratt is a player in this state, so it's worth looking at that. Whether or not they're taking plastics and that, I'm not sure at this point.
Jacqueline, isn't the key that you're sorting this stuff, you're keeping it separate, so then you can find someone to actually take that category of recycling?
Yes, these are all different vendors. So Evanflow takes all of their paint. They have probably 20 volunteers. While they're there, they're taking all the paint, they're putting it all into certain tubs. What happens is that goes down to Charleston. They mix all of that paint that comes in into 5 colors, and then that's either resold or reused into either more low income or different countries that will use that paint that's been mixed down into those particular 5 color increments. And that's the way that we reuse that. And with the scrap, well, you know, there's a premium on scrap, and people, you know, are selling it, and so that's why we have to take it in turns. This year it goes to Lexington. Next year it'll go to Richland. Now, I will say that all 11 of your recycling centers for Lexington County still take glass, you know, your glass bottles and all of that. I know there's some, you know, hubbub on the sites and stuff that, you know, glass isn't taken, but if you set a box aside and go to Bush River Recycling Center, they will take all of your glass. And Richland County is putting in a glass bunker, and it'll be the same way, but, you know, who wants to drive down to the CD landfill? That's over in back of Egypt, but, so, I mean, Sunoco has been hit hard because because China has cut back on what they will take, and they don't want the mixed coagulated papers, and if there's anything in there that's not supposed to be in there, they'll send it back. And then that costs the company, Sunoco, money. So that we've sent it over, you know, Sunoco's paid the tariff to send it over, and then they say, oh, you've got plastic bags in with your cardboard, and so they say this is unusual, and they send it back at the cost of Sunoco, so Sunoco's losing money. So they're passing down their cost to the consumer, which is y'all. So it is now Sunoco picks up at the Lexington County Bush River Road. So it's a free service here, but the county picks up that bill. So there has to be some way that you all can jibe, get together and talk with the counties, and maybe that will, you know, maybe Mr. Brown can, you know, talk about how that can all help and be offset or get some kind of grant, or I can put more work on Mr. Brown, that's all.
We're not on Lexington County's Christmas mailing list right now.
And Lexington taxes their citizens in their tax bill for that. That's why they don't
Right.
charge. Richland does too, but they
Yes.
still charge
Yeah.
on top of that. But
So, but, you know, I'm here to hopefully you will continue to fund Keep the Midlands Beautiful at the same rate that you have in the past. Mr. Brown has all that information, and I thank you for your time if there's no further questions.
thank you. And let's see. And Whit Klein wanted to speak for a moment on stormwater.
Council, Lexington County is now doing a stormwater survey. If our citizens will go to our town's Facebook page, there's a link there to the survey. They're trying to get some input on whether the residents really want to get the creeks cleaned out. We've got 2 creeks that are in Lexington County, Kinley and Rawls Creek. I think we all know they're in desperate need of some maintenance. So the input to the county would be huge in getting that done. Those of you that have Facebook pages, if y'all would share the link and encourage your followers to fill out the survey. If you fill out the survey, you have a chance to get a $25 gift certificate.
It's on the town's webpage too?
It's on the town's Facebook page.
Facebook, okay.
Yes.
And can Richland County
If you live in Irmo, anywhere in Irmo, whether it's Richland County or Lexington County, we encourage all of you to fill it out.
Okay.
Because we do stormwater through Lexington County.
Yeah.
Because it has to do with the water quality and cleaning out the creeks. So if you live in Irmo anywhere, whether it's Richland County or Lexington County, please fill out the survey.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thank you.
thank you.
And let's see. Any other considerations of communications?
Mayor, can I add one other thing, please?
Yeah.
Hey, just want to let everybody know, Allen University's football team is kicking back up since 2005. They have not played football, college football. They're kicking back up. They will be playing at the Irmo High School football stadium starting September 1st. So you're going to have a college football team playing college football at the William Bryce Stadium, or not William, sorry, W.C. Hawkins Stadium. But they came down, they talked with us today at the police department, and just wanted to let y'all know. But they may be using the bus parking lot across the street, which is in the town limits of Irmo. And they are expecting 25 to 3,000 people for their opening. So there will be like 4 home games throughout the year. And I just checked the schedule to make sure it wasn't October 20th, and it is not. So just wanted to make sure that was still good to go. But
Did they play on Saturday?
they play on Saturdays.
Okay.
Yeah, got college football in Irmo.
Good.
So that'll be interesting.
And any other considerations? Next item is presentation by citizens. This is where any citizen who would like to address council on anything that's on the agenda tonight may do so at this time. All we ask is your name and address for the record and which item you want to speak to. Seeing none, no unfinished.
Whoa,
Oh.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry.
Randy Clarkson, my address is pretty well known. I'm going to speak about a couple things. The first one is National Night Out was awesome. It was the best event I've been to in all the years I lived in Irmo, including the Strut. So thank you very much. So the parking is on the agenda. And I don't blame the police department for this, but I have a real issue on quite a few things that's happening with the parking being enforced. Number one is the ordinance is not on the website the way that it was passed. The police department has it correct on their Facebook page, but the town of Irmo does not. So I'd like to get that fixed if we could. If it's not updated, I understand, but it's very difficult to know.
The company that does it, they update it quarterly.
Gotcha. Okay. There was a big confusion about that. The way that it's supposed to be enforced, the way that it was talked about when y'all passed it was that visitors were able to park in the yards temporarily. Actually, homeowners were allowed to park in the yards temporarily as well. It is not being enforced that way. My grandmother came to visit, I believe it was weekend before last. I was not home, thank the Lord, when this happened, but the officer approached her before she ever got her car turned off, told her she couldn't park there. She said, yeah, this is my parking spot. It's been my parking spot for 15 years. I'm parking here. And they went back and forth about it. He educated her on the parking ordinance, which shouldn't have happened because she doesn't live there. She's a visitor, and left the parking ordinance with her. It was very embarrassing for me. It shook her up. Not only was she a visitor, she's also handicapped, and it's very clear that she is handicapped. So I think we need to find a way to enforce this where the police are not approaching our visitors. It makes this town look really bad. It makes homeowners look really bad. It makes people not want to come visit. There is nowhere else for her to park. I have put the parking pads up. As hideous as they look, they have been approved by Bob, and that is the only section that is left for her to park in. We cannot park on the street because, as we've also seen in the last week, people are being ticketed for parking their cars half in the street, not ticketed, I'm sorry, abated, I guess is the word, for parking their car half in the street and half on the grass. So now we actually have to park in the street. Tonight, when I left my home to come here, we were weaving in and out of cars because now no one can actually straddle the curb without being stopped. It used to be a welcome sight to see the Irmo police cars. Now it's like, what are they going to stop me for? I'm out there measuring my grass to make sure we can wait a couple more days to cut it. And I don't mean that against y'all. It's this council's fault. I should be able to have a visitor come to my house without the police approaching them. We want to talk about stuff looking ghetto or whatever. That makes us look really bad, really bad. Secondly, there's a thing on here about the town center, and I can only assume what that's about because there's no explanations about any of this, and this is all we're allowed to talk about. But yet, we don't know what's on here really because it's written for whoever's trying to pass it. So the town center, I'm assuming that includes the Domino's, and they were just granted a variance, or that property was granted a variance for parking, which I find to be comical because we don't grant variances for our residents, but we can grant variances for businesses. We have, on my way here, I counted 15 empty businesses in this town, but yet we're creating another one, and we're worried about people parking at it. But yet we have an elderly lady who has to scream until her neighbor runs outside to help pick her up, who can't get a parking variance. We have people moving out of Irmo. We not only run businesses out of Irmo, we've run residents out of Irmo, and now we're running visitors out of Irmo. This is the town that y'all have created, and I'm not attacking y'all. I know that people love to call each other names on Facebook, and you can call me whatever you want to, but what you won't call me is quiet. I will not shut up. This is not okay. I sat in a lawyer's office the other day and listened to him talk about how no one wants to come here to have a business, how he's thinking of moving his business. That's sad. He's been here since I was a little girl. And it's because of this. This town has become so political, the residents don't matter anymore. So I hope that y'all will figure out a way to either rewrite this ordinance or give the police department some sort of direction, because y'all really, it's written horrible. I don't blame you at all. I don't blame the new police officer who was thrown out there into, pardon me, but a shitstorm. And what's he to do? He doesn't know. Y'all know. I mean, who gets the ticket and who doesn't? We're supposed to put our cars in the middle of the road now. That should be a ticket. I mean, nobody knows what to do. So some guidance would be good, since we weren't listened to begin with. It'd be great if y'all fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. No unfinished business. Next item is new business, ordinance 1822. This is the one that has to do with the cost of the collecting of the delinquent debts. Is there a motion for first reading of 1822?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
And I don't know if you want to ask Bob to explain it all or something first, or just
Yeah, go ahead.
jump into it.
So I will make it real easy and defer to Mr. Kaufman, who is the person who set up, basically what it is for collecting fines that people owe the town of Irmo or any other municipality. And it's done through the Department of Revenue. They will collect the fines based on anybody.
Can you put that mic on, please?
How's that? The fines are collected through income tax returns. So we will file the paperwork with Department of Revenue through the Municipal Association. They're going to collect a fee, not from us, but from the people who owe the fines to do the collections for us. We've done this before. The biggest problem is the only time we're going to get money back is if people have an income tax return to be able to get the money from. We did this about 9 years ago. I think it was around $33,000, $34,000 that we applied for. We ended up getting about $3,000 back. But again, that's because if the people are, it's just for state income taxes, not federal. It's not garnishing anybody's pay. Right now, we figure we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of $45,000 to maybe $50,000 worth of fines that are owed us that we can file for reimbursement. And if we're lucky enough and they have an income tax return, then we'll get the money. If they don't, we won't. It's just a one-time-a-year thing. during tax season.
So we have to do it every year, or we do it and they just keep doing it? Or we have to do it every year?
I am not sure what the process is. We only have to do the ordinance one time, but we may have to renew the agreements with the municipal association each year. The ordinance is for the Department of Revenue.
How much money are we entitled, is out there that we didn't get?
Somewhere in the ballpark of $45,000 to $50,000. I mean, there's a lot more money owed to town, probably closer to 90, but I mean, they don't fall into the parameters of what we can claim on this go-round.
Under the program, if someone owes, let's say, $5,000, and they have a tax refund of $1,000, does the, first of all, they'll take the $1,000.
My understanding is that's correct.
But does that now close that particular thing? It keeps going.
Right.
I think it's a good idea.
So, let's see, and you made the motion, so I'll let you go.
If people owe us money and if we have some way to get it, I think it's a good idea. We need it as badly as anyone. Thank you, Kim.
And Julius?
Second what Kathy said, you owe money, you should pay your debt. And this doesn't cost the town anything to secure this. It's done by many municipalities across the state.
Any more discussion? All in favor then of first reading of 1822, do so a show of hands. And next is 1823. This is the one with the franchise. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I will make a motion for that. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And this one I know we just voted on it not too long ago, last meeting, I think it was, maybe, or the one before that. My only concern was we had some information given to us, and I didn't have a lot of time to look over it. I have since then, and my only concern, kind of the same thing I had at that time too, was the 1% increase creates about $195,000 in extra revenue, but the expenses that we were going to offset roughly from 2016 to 2018 went up about $22,600. And I just really feel like that's a big increase to cover a small amount of a big revenue increase to cover a small debt. That's why I wanted to put it on the agenda to change it from the 4% back to 3.5%, which means we'd only be raising it 0.5%, which is about roughly $100,000. To me, that's still a good amount of money to cover a smaller debt. I would much rather do 0.25%, but I don't think that would pass, so I just wanted to see about going to this. If there was something else we needed to do with the rest of the money or whatever, I'd be willing to reconsider if I knew what the rest of it would go to. But I just kind of felt like we're going to be increasing 195,000, only need 22, and the other 170 is going to start being spent some form of fashion, or wanted to be spent some form of fashion, and I don't know that we have a good plan for it. I haven't heard one, so I just wanted to know what it's for and kind of go from there, or ask that we decrease it. I do believe by the time this thing would go into effect and by the time we see the money, the new Honda dealership would be online and a few other businesses as well, and I think we'll see some increase from that. I just don't want to end up with a big surplus that year and people going, why did you raise it when you don't need it? But that's my 2 cents, and I think, Mark, you had seconded it, so.
Again, I think you tax as you need to tax. You don't tax before. And again, to raise $22,000 to get from the citizens, 195,000, is a bit much. We can always change it. You can always change it as you need to change it, but you don't go taxing them now.
Any more discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
I think you're both wrong. And all I did was, this was factored in because I asked Bob, I said, what else would contribute to this? And he said, well, of course, the step raises every year, along with, at a minimum, 1% cost of living. Do y'all have any idea how much that is? It's $73,000. And you can add that to your 22 or 23. But this is important. The other thing is, when these figures were done for this year, we were either 4 or 5 officers down. And we're not sure exactly, it could be 4.5, but anyway, the way it was figured. So we factored that in, the retirement only. We didn't even factor in insurance, nothing else. That figure of $668,884 goes up to between $695,000 to $702,000. This is a big difference. The other thing that goes up is health care cost, over which we have no control. And I have the forms here. If you want to see them, you can. It amazed me that the town's part of the family plan, which most people have that have children, is $1,000 a month. This is a lot of money. There's no way to underestimate, and it's going up all the time. Retirement is set to 1% a year to go up, but health care is not. I come up with about $150,000, give or take, and I've spoken to Bob at length. The town needs this, and I don't think the 0.5% matters in view of the things that are going up. And you just heard 2 of them before we even began, about Richland County Jail and recycling. Now, recycling can be handled by the garbage account, so take that out. But our costs are going up. And if you say there's not inflation, that's wrong. There is inflation. And I hope it's controlled, but anyway. I don't think this is unreasonable, and I think it's a solution and not a quick fix. I don't like quick fixes. And I think the town needs this, and I think it's still a good idea. I rest my case.
Any more?
You said it was $1,000 for family medical?
Yes, that's the town's cost.
And the
The
employees don't pay that, right?
They pay their part. I don't know what their part is, but our part is $1,000.
I thought they don't pay their insurance.
On themselves.
On
This is
themselves,
the family
right.
plan. And
So
most people have children.
So we can pass that on to employees, can't we, if it goes up?
No, this is how health care is set up.
No, I'm saying if it goes up, we can't pass that on to
Well,
employees?
theirs goes up too. It's like retirement. They pay their part and we
Right.
pay ours. And they're both going up. And there's almost nothing you can do about it. Because I think y'all are paying 9% for retirement right now.
Almost 10% of our
Almost
check
10%.
goes to the retirement system.
When my husband retired in 2003, 4, whenever, he was at 6. So it has gone up significantly for y'all as well, but it's gone up for us too. And just multiplying it out, we're at $700,000.
So where are you getting that $23,000 from then?
Well, if you
I mean,
go
Mr. King.
exactly by some of these, that's probably what it is. You have to remember, we were down 5 officers. Health care is not going to go down, it's going to go up. Plus the cost of living and the step raises, which we voted for. It's fine. But that's $73,000. Add it all up, it's a lot of money.
So the worst case is if we can't do the raises and we can't, some of those things we want to do, we can't do.
But
we won't be able to do it, right?
I just want to have enough money to pay our employees what we have to pay them. Anyway.
Well, better prepared than get caught with your pants down. And I've never seen anything go down. Electrical rates, SCE&G got caught with their pants down, and they are suffering from it. They are now lowering their rates by law, but they're also suing to have that changed. Public Service Commission, which is appointed by our state legislature, allowed all this to take place. There are a lot of checks and balances that aren't in existence. On the news the other night, one of the electric cooperatives, which I'm on Mid-Carolina, this is another one, their board were voting themselves per diem, so they were meeting more and collecting more. And the people that were served by this cooperative voted the other night, and I believe it was 60-something, 6,200 people to get rid of that board, and 30 to keep it. And an attorney we are familiar with was their attorney, and he made a public statement that you have to consider these are country folk that aren't very educated. Well, the country folk voted them out. And SCE&G hasn't finished with us yet. And I do get gas from them. I don't get electricity from them. But the co-ops buy their electricity from large companies and pass the savings on to us, the users, because we're now owners. But if they get an increase, we're going to get an increase. And there's nothing sure in life except death and taxes, and they're both going to happen. I just don't want something drastic to happen in the town of Irmo where we need some money quickly, or we get caught in a vice that we have to produce and it's not there. Yes, we could probably get by with 0.5%, but then this time next year or shortly after the first of the year, we might have raise it again. And this is a business license fee that they are going to pass. Well, it's not a business license. They are going to pass the franchise fee on to the consumer. That's just the way businesses operate. If the cost of producing the shirt you have on your back goes up to Belk's, Belk's is going to raise the price in their store. And if you need the shirt, you're going to buy it. So I think we need to leave it alone and leave it as we passed it last time.
You call it a tax? You said it's a fee? What do you call it?
It's a franchise fee.
No, but I mean, you called it something else. A service fee? Is that what it was?
Business license.
It's sort of like luxury tax.
Luxury tax.
If you have cable, you're going to pay about $1.50, $2.
Right.
If you still have a landline telephone,
I do.
of which there are very few.
I do.
I do too. That's $1. And electricity. I think I'm going to pay about $3.50. I believe.
Right. Okay.
I wanted to answer Councilman Walker's question. It says right there 644, and it went up to 668, which is about $22,688 for a 2-year period, which means it went up about 11 and a half on average per year. And I'm not sure where you got the 150,000 from, but if you look back at our budget, and if you look back at all these numbers, you can kind of go back since 2015-16 budget and do your averages from there on out and see what everything is. I don't agree with that 150,000 going up next year. I think we'll probably see somewhere in the maybe $25,000 increase in all this stuff that we're looking at here. And maybe just a little bit more if we have full employment at the same time throughout the whole year, which typically we don't. Haven't for years, but we could. I'm just going to still say the same thing. I think if you need a $12,000, $20,000 increase a year, you go up 20 to 30,000, not 195,000. I don't think we're going to end up next year in a predicament where we're short. I just don't see it. I know we're going to be tight, and I agree things are going to go up. We're going to be tight, and that means we need to be tight on our spending, tight on our budgeting, and everything else. But I just don't agree with charging $195,000 for something that cost $11,000 a year on average for the past 2 years. I think that's just overkill. And the other thing that never goes down is it's a whole lot easier to go up on a tax next year than it is to come back and go down on it. I've never seen anybody do that. I don't think we will.
We did it.
We did it.
We did it. We replaced it. We didn't go down. We replaced it. We got rid of the property tax with the local option sales tax. So we didn't go down on any tax. We just replaced it with a new tax.
But
Went-
we could have
went-
kept both, and we did.
Well, right. You
We
could
went
have.
down.
Could have kept both.
But anyway, any more discussion?
No.
All in favor then of ordinance 1823, which was to decrease it 0.5% basically, do so with show of hands.
I voted for it.
You voted no?
Yeah. No, I voted with Hardy and Mark.
Okay. To decrease it to 3.5. All opposed?
Takes 3 readings, right?
Yeah. All right, next one is first reading of ordinance 1823. This is the one that has to do with the judge ordinances. And I will make a motion for that one as well, since I put that on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Do we have that stuff on the table, on the computer? We've had some discussions about this around the table, and I think Eric's chimed in and also sent us a bunch of information. If you can pull up that 57230, Vi. I wanted to go over this. We looked at this law, and I think Eric sent out some stuff too, but if you look at the state law, which is very confusing, number 57230, it says in there that the council may elect or appoint a municipal attorney and a judge or judges. And then if you go to number 1425.5, state law says that we have to pass an ordinance, and the ordinance shall provide for the appointment of one or more judges and the appointment of a clerk. And then if you go to 1425.25, it says that we can contract out. A municipality may contract with any other municipality in the county or in the county with a governing body to employ. Our ordinance, number 20-3, says we have to appoint. So ours doesn't kind of mirror what state law says. State law says we can appoint one or we can contract out with one. So that's why I wanted to change our ordinance, 1824, to mirror what the state law says. And that way, now and in the future, we can either appoint one, if we so deem, or we can contract out with one as the state allows. There's been some disagreement as to the fact that we appointed one, and we cannot appoint someone, they cannot serve 2 positions of honor. And Eric has sent some stuff and some legal opinions and all that good mess too. And there's also a order in here from the Supreme Court Justice that says we can appoint. But in order to make sure there's no discrepancy down the road, I think the easiest thing for us to do is just change our ordinance to say that we can contract out with one, as the law says, and then do it that way. I know me and Eric may not agree on this, but I think it says in one of the legal opinions, the only problem, technically we can appoint somebody all we want to. If they're already appointed, that's not our deal. We can appoint who we want. If they get sworn in, then by the Constitution, they automatically vacate their original appointment. But from what I'm reading from the judge, and I think Eric has agreed too, if we appoint a magistrate to to them, and they don't have to get sworn in. So if they don't have to get sworn in, then they can't vacate their previous seat. Technically, I think we're fine doing it the way. But I know Eric disagrees and is kind of, for our benefit, giving us the best legal advice that the legal Attorney General's opinions have also said you can't serve two positions, and this would be two positions of honor. If we swore them in, they might have an argument. If we don't, then I don't think they would. But I think the easiest way is just to change the wording and let it say that we may appoint or contract by the council with either Richland County or Lexington County magistrate pursuant to that law. And then that kind of straightens it out. And then also, ours says they have to be sworn in according to the Supreme Justice. If they're already sworn in, they don't need to be sworn in. So I wanted to make sure that's in there so it's clear down the road that we don't have to go through this again. And that's where this is coming from. I think it just clarifies it and makes it easy, and then we can contract out at third reading once we get this to third reading, if it gets to third reading. And who seconded? Julius? Nope.
Well, based on reading the Supreme Court decision, once you're sworn in, you are a judge. If you are appointed down the road to some other, say a municipality as a judge, you're already sworn in. It's just like walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's a duck, and you can't change it to a chicken. So if you're sworn in and meets the state's guidelines, and there's no need for us to swear them in again. So that would not violate this double appointment position.
Yeah, we could probably not do anything and just move on forward, but I think to make it so that nobody does have a disagreement or understanding or whatever, then if we just change the ordinance and go back and once that is finalized, then we just renew that contract and extend that contract with Judge Adams, then everything's fair and square and done by the book, so to speak, with no cloud hanging over that we did it wrong.
May I ask our attorney if this helps our ordinance any?
Oh. Go ahead, yeah.
As the mayor pointed out, I don't necessarily agree with his position on this. My position on it is that the state ordinance says that if you want to have a municipal court, then you shall appoint a judge. It's not unequivocal. It doesn't say shall or anything along those lines. It goes on to a separate code section where it says that you may contract with the county that your municipality is in to have a magistrate or another municipal judge preside over your court. Now, the only way I can read these two is that you can contract with Lexington and with Lexington to have Judge Adams preside over your court pursuant to contract, pursuant to 142525. She can do everything if that's what you want her to do. I don't know how you get past the shall appoint a judge. Now, you can have an appointed judge who does nothing more than show up once every year to say, yep, court's going well, and that's what your judge does. I don't know. That's a whole different ball of wax. So, but as far as the wording of this, I don't know that it is in keeping with the state statute. That is my concern. It's not how I would have worded it. But it's not entirely inaccurate. Can you? For sure. You can either appoint a judge or contract. They're separate statutes. And I think that is the divide. I don't think there's I think the Attorney General opinions I passed along made it clear that you don't carry two positions of honor at the same time. So, I mean, does it work? I think it's a little unclear, but it is what it is.
The Supreme Court order would be applicable, though, right?
So the Supreme Court order, in my personal opinion, it's referencing the power of the Chief Justice to put any judge anywhere they feel like having that judge put. And in this particular one, the very first sentence of the very first line, the judge is doing what is required of, well, not required, what the judge has the discretion to do pursuant to 1425-25. I find that the governing body of Lexington County has entered into an agreement with the municipality of Irmo. That is an agreement pursuant to 1425-25. And the way the statutory scheme works, and they properly cite to the powers of the chief administrative judge, and this is what the chief administrative judge did, approved that very contract. And that's what you would do to expand Judge Adams' duties to cover the entire scope of the requirements of our municipal court pursuant to 1425-25. So again, I don't see any problem with the function of the ordinance as much as I just don't necessarily like the way the words seem to contradict the state's requirement that you shall appoint. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
In other words, you can expand
I know what you
the
mean.
duties as far as you want to expand the duties pursuant to 1425-25. I don't know what you do with the requirement that you shall appoint.
Does changing our ordinance help?
In my personal opinion, changing your ordinance to, if I were to change the ordinance, I would have made the ordinance. No, I don't know how you get past that requirement of state law.
Okay.
Well, the state law basically says two conflicting things. I mean, it also says you can elect somebody. Well, how can you elect somebody if you got to appoint somebody? So,
well, an election would be a separate process. It's different than an appointment. Appointment is what happens when a governing body appoints somebody.
but if we choose to elect one, we're still not abiding by appointing one.
And I'll be honest, I didn't look at that particular code, that particular section.
5-7.
The one.
So I think in the short of it is we have to decide something, and it sounds like state legislators have not done a great job of making this clear as to how you appoint or elect or contract out. We also have that Supreme Court order from 2005 from Gene Toll that says this authority also extends to magistrates who serve as municipal judges, basically saying they can do it. And that Supreme Court, or that Attorney General's opinion, says the only conflict that comes from appointing somebody to two positions is when they get sworn in. They automatically vacate. If you don't swear them in, then they haven't vacated, and they don't vacate anything. That might be a problem on their end, or it might be a problem on whoever appointed them the first time. But I think we can do as we did. But I think, and if we want to do first reading and let Eric do the wording on this, but I don't know how much more, I don't say simpler you can make it, or legalese you can make it. You're still going to have the same problem. So it's up to us. I think we just have to decide something and move forward. And if somebody don't like it, then let them worry about it.
I know it's not that. I just would assume that the Supreme Court order would take care of everything.
I think it does. You think it does, but Eric think it doesn't.
I know.
So, and probably the same thing as this. I think just putting it in our contract like the state law says, okay, we can do what state law says, contract out with somebody. Maybe we contract out with them, and then when we contract out with them, we also say, hey, we appoint you too. Now we covered both places. They're not going to get sworn in, so they're not whatever.
Okay, why don't we give this first reading and let him look at it?
But, somebody would have to challenge it, and I think the Supreme Court would rule with their order and say it's fine. I think the Attorney General's opinion says until you swear them in, they don't have a problem. So I don't know, but I'm not a lawyer. I'm a, what's the thing? An uneducated country folk. So, so I don't know too much. But anyway, any more discussion? All ready to vote? All in favor then of first reading on 1824, do so with show of hands. And next is 1825. This is the one with the parking change, I think, on the handicap, yeah. Is there a motion for first reading on 1825?
So move.
And a second.
Second.
And let's see, Councilman Walker and then Councilwoman Condon.
We even heard from citizens today, and they were telling us about people getting approached that were visiting, and people were getting approached and were parking on their grass that were handicapped. And I know that we didn't take that in consideration in the original ordinance. People with handicap stickers on their cars, and I think we need to add that to the ordinance, is to exempt anybody with a valid handicap sticker or a valid handicap plate on their cars. If they need to get closer to their door to park, then they should be exempt from the parking ordinance. One of the situations I heard came up is we had a disabled veteran who was basically abated and told that he had to build a parking deck on his property. And the guy's been parking close to his door for a long time. That's unacceptable to me, and I hope it isn't to the rest of y'all, that we have to basically abate on a veteran who has served time in the military and has tried to live in Irmo peaceably. We need to add this to the ordinance, and I don't know, I think that it's something that we needed to do from the get-go, but we take it one step at a time.
And Kathy, I think you were...
Yeah, we had a friend, I imagine quite a few people with this problem, that was undergoing chemo and very, very sick. And walking was a real problem. And her roommate, they would park almost at the front door, so she would not get overheated and fall or whatever trying to walk in. Now, one of our policemen did notice that, but he had the good judgment to talk to them and find out and realized how sick she was, and said, it's fine, do whatever you need to do. And I think it's a matter of good judgment. We have a lot of people in this town sick, that have had knee surgery, hip surgery, and that have cancer. And we just ought to do this. This is, taking care of the sick is one of our responsibilities as good people, not with the town, but that we ought to. So I'm in favor of it.
Where is the, and I'm looking on this thing, where is the, is there anything in our ordinance right now that says anything about handicap?
Not in parking.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't say anything whatsoever about you overseeing or looking or whatever? Okay.
Not handicap or ADA.
I think the only, I don't know if anybody else wants to go.
Yeah, I'd like to be the devil's advocate for a minute. My wife's a 3-time survivor of cancer. She has neuropathy in her feet. She has trouble walking. She does have a handicap permit. If she parked at the front door of our house, she's got to go up 8 steps. If she parks in the driveway or in the garage, there's only 2. So each one's going to be a different situation. At least that's the way I see it. We're also going to tread on some zoning ordinances that forbid parking in the front of houses in the front setback. I have noticed in driving around there are some folks that have many steps in the front of their houses, and they have their garages full of things that aren't automobiles. And obviously, when the house was built, there has to be a door into the house from the garage, which wouldn't be that many steps. But that's just the way things are. I don't disagree that people who have problems need to have access to their homes. But there are some folks that just don't want to park in the driveway or in the garage. They want to park where it's easiest in their eyes to get in their house, and going up 6 steps wouldn't be the easiest if my wife thought that. Maybe if I was helping her up the steps, which I do, when she even walks up 2 steps into the garage, into the house. I think we need to research this a little bit and be sure we don't trudge on some other ordinances in the town that would counter this, because there are some. I went through the zoning the other night when we got our little new packets that we get every so often to update our code books. I just ran across one I'd never seen before about you can't park in the front of your front door, and it's a zoning ordinance. So that's just something else we need to look at. I have run into a gentleman of late that is he's 87 years old in 2 days. He's the oldest surviving guard of the unknown. And one of his neighbors down the end of the block didn't want his mailbox where it was put when the house was built. He wanted it over here where his driveway is, so he can pull in his driveway and reach in his mailbox and take out his mail. Well, his number is the same as this 87-year-old gentleman who lives on the correct street with the correct number, which just happens to be the same as this gentleman who moved his mailbox. And he's very laid back. He doesn't draw attention to himself. I only discovered it by reading the fish wrapper in Lexington, in the Lexington Chronicle, when they did a story about this man. And then I found out he lived in Irmo, and I went, my gosh, why haven't we seen him or, just come up before? His wife is in the early stages of Alzheimer's, and they had a medicine patch that she has, and they didn't tell them at the time that it can't be in the same spot within a week of removing it and putting it somewhere else. So he has this diagram of her back where he's had them as it goes. But make a long story short, they called an ambulance one night, and the ambulance couldn't find the house, because when they came up Lordship, there's the number, and they went to the house at 2 in the morning and woke the people up, and they raised a little sand with the drivers and said, you're in the wrong house, and blah, 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 blah. Well, you've got the correct number on this street. And he says, well, it used to be over there. This gentleman also gets his medicines through the mail. Sometimes it's brought in a brown paper bag from the neighbor down the street that collects his mail and his whatever else and brings it to him. So I'm going to see about talking with the postmaster downtown, because the postmaster's never at the Irmo post office, about getting this remedied before they have a real incident where they call for an ambulance and this happens. And this is still relating to handicap, because, this could be anybody.
Can we pull this up to where all the 4 shows at one time, or is it just like page by page, or whatever you call it? Okay. The only thing I was going to say, I don't have a problem with doing this. I just think we need to say something to the effect of the whatever we used in that other thing must be approved by the zoning administrator, which is Bob, to where he can go out and approve them as to put them here or put them there or whatever it was. I'm not exactly sure how to say that and where to say that, because can't remember what 4A said when I, and now I can't remember the other one. But I think you need to have something in there about allowing Bob to approve these things, just like we do any of them that can't be determined by the code enforcement officer. Then Bob goes out and lets them know it can go here or there. I think he ought to have that same jurisdiction to do the same.
Well, it says if you have a plate, if you have a sticker or a plate on the car, clearly they already been approved by the state. So there's no need for Bob to go out and say, okay, yeah, you got a sticker on the car, or you got a plate. The officer can see that clearly.
That's to park in a labeled handicap parking space.
That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about.
People gonna label their yards handicapped?
No, we're talking about the vehicle. The vehicle is what gets a ticket. If they got a sticker on the car that says I'm handicapped, there's no need to call Bob and say, hey, Bob, come and say, see the sticker in the car? Is that a sticker?
Well, I think they
He's already got that.
Yeah, Bob would decide, yeah, they don't get a ticket, but they still have to park in a certain spot. And you're saying they don't need to have a parking pad too, I guess.
I didn't say that. I said that they don't need to be harassed by the Irmo Police Department for being abated for handicap parking. If it's got if they got a handicap sticker.
So you're saying he can park in his yard anywhere he wants to with a handicap?
Anywhere he needs to park to get into his house.
Well, and that's the part I'm saying I think Bob needs to approve. Are you saying not to put a pad, or they still have to put a pad, they just have to approve where it goes?
I'm saying if they got a handicap sticker in their car, they don't need to be approached by Irmo PD for anything when they have a handicap sticker on their car. It's not hard. It's not rocket science, guys. Well, very clear. We're harassing veterans that have handicap stickers.
I don't know that we're harassing anybody. I doubt very seriously.
Well, we're not harassing. We're following the law that the council passed. Yes. I don't think it needs to be verified by Bob that they have a handicap sticker if they got one.
No, I don't think Bob needs to verify that either. I'm just saying I think he would have to say, here's where your parking pad goes.
But that's not what I'm asking. That's not what I'm saying. If they have a sticker on the car that says I'm handicapped, they don't need to be approached by Irmo PD and say that you're parking on the grass or you're parking in a legal spot. That's all.
But at my house, you'd park in the driveway and walk out, because I have a garage and all that. But a lot of these houses don't have garages.
Right.
They have single-car driveways. I think this is the humane thing to do. If y'all want to word it differently or whatever, we need to make allowance for people who are handicapped. It's not their fault. And I just think this is the humane thing to do. We can word it differently or whatever, but
when we fix it, like I said, let's fix the rest of them where it'll contradict it.
well,
Because that's
the
been a
zoning
problem
thing
with
we don't enforce.
the Irmo ordinances. One
But the
will be
ordinances-
passed and never looked back at the other ones, just like when we had the problem about parking in the street. And then it says in the travel portion of the street, what's the travel portion of the street? That's where you can travel if there's a car parked over here and a car parked over here. But it was interpreted at that time that it was from curb to curb, and that's not what it says in state law. So before we jump off the bridge, let's be sure we have a life jacket and we know what we're jumping into.
Probably when the zoning was written, there was no ADA. None of the,
It's been around a long time.
It's been a long time ago when it was written. We've got to make allowance somehow, and I don't care where or how it's written or what, but I just think we do.
And I'm not disagreeing. I'm just, from what I'm reading here, is that if we do it this way, they're exempt from getting a parking pad at all. They can just park anywhere they want to, and they're exempt from getting a parking pad at all, and that's that. So they can park in the front yard, front door, wherever they want to. That's So I just want to make sure that's where we are and that's what we're understanding.
That
Is
doesn't
that-
bother me.
Huh?
That doesn't bother me.
Okay.
We can do whatever, y'all think best. I just think this is a special class of people, and we need to make allowances for that.
Any more you want
I think Kathy's right. I think if someone is handicapped, we have to make an exception. If someone's handicapped, we have to make an exception.
to? So leave it like it is right here. No amendments, no motion, no nothing.
I think you pass it first so we can discuss it more, we can do some research. Look at the ordinances.
This is
But let's
first reading.
pass this.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor then of ordinance 1825, first reading, do so with show of hands.
I think that was mighty humane of y'all. Thank you.
And next is the approval of a resolution 1806. This is the one, the Municipal Association, from my understanding, wants us to do a resolution, and then we also have to have an agreement. Is that correct, Bob? Yeah. So we have to do the resolution, and then we'll do the agreement later. Is there a motion for approval of the resolution 1806?
So move.
And second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Don't think we need to.
Any discussion?
No, we're ready.
All in favor then of 1806, do so with show of hands. Next is the approval of the agreement with the town of Irmo and am I on the right one?
Yep.
Mid Carolina Electric and South Carolina Electric and Gas. Is there a motion for approval of the agreement?
So move.
And second,
Second?
we need discussion on that.
It just clarifies who's serving who. It doesn't cost anybody anything. It doesn't cost us anything, put it that way, the town.
They could have made those maps a little bigger with those
Yeah, they
words.
could have.
I had a terrible time
I'm
coming up
coming
with some of
back
those
fine
street
class.
names.
That's right.
All in favor then of the...
I never seen this before. Is this something that we did before? I don't remember doing this last year. Do you remember?
No, this is something that Mid Carolina and SCNG got together and did together, so to avoid overlap. And this is something they did themselves internally, and they're now asking municipalities to adopt it so that there will be no confusion.
As to who serves who.
Okay, I'm presently served by SC&G, so how can I get Mid Carolina to come
I was
serve?
going to ask the same thing. Are y'all Mid Carolina or SCNG?
I mean, I want y'all to Shadowleaf Court. Can y'all service my street too?
Javelin Court. And
You get who you get.
You're not changing?
Well, it's just like people in New Friars Gate, there are very few gas packs because the railroad limits gas lines going in there because of the possible explosions and whatever else, and the railroad was there first.
well, those gas packs are expensive.
That's what I've got.
I do too. It's $15,000 now.
So God knows
That's a lot of
somebody.
money.
So, okay, I mean, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I just wonder how y'all came up with these lines, you know?
They came up
They
with
did.
Yeah, I'm saying,
Well,
I wonder how they came
And
up
I
with
think, and I don't know, but don't the Public Service Commission or something draw those franchise
Yep.
boundaries out and say, here's yours? And
Here's yours and here's that.
And who appoints them? The state legislature.
any more discussion? All in favor then of the approval of the agreement with Mid Carolina and South Carolina Electric and Gas, do so with show of hands. Next is the agreement with Municipal Association to act as our agent in accordance with the set-off claim thing, which is the one that we give them the agreement to collect that money for us. And is there a motion for approval of that agreement with Municipal
I
Association?
make a motion.
And a second.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor then of that agreement with the municipal association, do so with show of hands. And next one is approval to close a portion of Church Street, Lake Murray Boulevard, St. Andrews Road, Eastview Drive, and Battery Road for the orchestra to be held on September 28th through 29th. Is there a motion to approve the closing of those roads?
Make a motion.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just have one question. In the past, we closed off all of Lake Murray Boulevard for the Okra Strut, and the businesses got a little testy about that. And now that it's in the park, how much are we closing?
That's for the parade.
It's just a,
That's just for the
That's just for the parade, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, it didn't say that in this, and I just want to be sure.
Well, they closed Eastview during the festival in Battery Road, Church Street, but Lake Murray and St. Andrews, they just closed it for the parade. And they only closed Lake Murray just at the intersection
Right.
there when
Yeah,
everything's
the very-
kind of going
I just want to be sure that's all it was.
Any more discussion? All in favor then of closing those roads, do so with show of hands. Next is the town center map thing. This is the, and I don't know what's all on there, but I think years ago, people started talking about having what I call a town center or a town overlay or a town business district around the town park, an area where people, ask, where's Irmo? Then we'd point to that, so to speak. The Planning Commission did the comprehensive land use plan. Did I get a motion for that? No. Let me get a motion for that first. I'll make a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And the Planning Commission looked at everything when they did the comprehensive land use plan and said, yes, they incorporated that into their land use plan. I think somewhere, it's in this thing, that second sheet.
Second sheet.
Is what they had came up with, kind of an idea. And basically, this is the land that is between the town park and Woodrow Street, and then a section of land that goes from Woodrow Street down Lexington Avenue to where the Pope Davis Terry is, kind of in that area there. The Planning Commission looked at it and has kind of came up with some guidelines as far as the sidewalks and the street lighting and all kinds of stuff. But there was some difference of opinion as to where the overlay needed to be. When I had submitted to them this area around the town park, because I had talked to most of the people over there, some of them on the Planning Commission thought it needed to be bigger, and they wanted to go down Woodrow Street. They also wanted to cover those blocks on Lake Murray Boulevard. I also drew up a map, and Bob sent it to you on that next little, I guess it's purple or something, yeah, that one, showing a smaller footprint. And the only reason I feel like it needs to be a smaller is if you go with the one that the Planning Commission did, which was in the orange, our town hall and everything down Woodrow Street would be included in that. Most of those buildings are already there and they're existing and they're in place. Some of them are, like ours, old houses. According to our ordinances, if something were to, a tornado were to hit something or a fire were to hit something and something is 50% burned, you can't build back without meeting current guidelines. If it's only 40% burned, you can build back to the existing old guidelines when you build. So if we have put new ordinances in place or new whatever, they'd have to build back zero lot line. And I haven't talked to any of those people. I don't know if they'd be interested in that or not. So I think it was just getting a little bit too big. The purple thing is this block of land, I'm trying to remember where I'm at, right over that way, which is the Mott's property for the most part. And then this other section on Lexington Avenue is where Steve Crater Realty is, and all the way down that street. There's a vacant lot right there that belongs to the church, and then there's that house right there on the corner. At one time, on Carlisle Street, and it's on that little map that town center concept plan, some people wanted to build some townhouses there, and that's kind of what got everything started. They wanted to build zero lot line townhouses, but since that time, the fire department has bought that land that belonged to that daycare, which they were going to buy and use that whole section. And I don't know that they still want to do that anymore since we only got a small portion of land. And it's right next to the fire department. They had said before they made the two little blue buildings that are back there, they own those. They may build two more commercial structures like that and face them towards that other thing. So I kind of felt like we needed to keep the footprint as small as possible. The only thing I added to it from my original thing and what was on that concept plan was since the place that we just agreed to sell, Irmo Outdoor, and TD Banks, which is on the corner, is already zero lot line, that would cover them as well, because technically right now, if they were to burn down and they wanted to rebuild, they'd have to do back the setbacks. They couldn't build back because they were probably offered a waiver or variance or whatever years ago when they did what they did. So I felt like it was better to go ahead and include them since they already are zero lot line, and same thing for Irmo Outdoor Locks, since they're already zero lot line, to just stick them on there. But I felt like the smaller we keep it and start, once we kind of give them an idea of where we think it ought to be, they're going to finish up all the stuff, put it in ordinance form, and it'll come back for us to vote on. And we can still make changes at that time. But that'll give me something to go back and talk to these people and say, hey, here's where we decided. If we do the big one, I just think we're going to stir up a whole lot of people that aren't interested. And all these places on Lake Murray Boulevard, they don't want to do zero lot line when they already got into business with parking all around it. That's not, and you don't want to build parking on Lake Murray Boulevard because all the town center has parallel parking or 45-degree angle parking, whatever they call it. And I don't think it would work on Lake Murray Boulevard anyway. So I think we need to keep it kind of small and condensed. But once they do the business overlay, they're also going to do an ordinance, which somebody can take that ordinance and apply it to their property too if they want to. If somebody else in that area or Church Street or something wants to apply it all to theirs, then they could, because we'd have an ordinance as well. It'd just be another zoning classification. Instead of commercial, it'd be called something, business district, central business district, zero lot line, or whatever they call it. So that's kind of the ins and outs on that. They just wanted us to kind of give them some feedback as to how big or how small to make that footprint.
Okay, I have feedback.
Okay.
Theirs is too big and yours is too small.
Well, if you look at everything on here,
It needs to be in between. I mean, it's obvious to me, this is too big, this is too small.
well, right there's the park, so you don't need to do it on the park. You don't
Well,
need to do it on the police
It's the
department.
truth.
And then over here, you got the town hall. We don't need to do it on that. And then you got, what's the chamber in that place. So there's really nowhere else to put it. And this lot right here, which is the one on Columbia Avenue, the third one to your left off of Murray, that's already kind of developed as well.
But this is hardly worth doing.
I have a question too,
Well,
Go ahead.
which might, why are we just developing 1/4 of the center of the town?
because it's only around the town park. And everything else is already developed.
Yeah,
That's
you're
making the park the center.
Yeah, it's kind of
you're
making
trying to
the park-
anchor
This
it
is
around.
redeveloping this area, not worrying about the current businesses or everything else.
Right.
So it's really not a town center plan then. It's just to encourage
It's
more
called a
business.
business, I think they called it Central Business
Yeah.
District
Because I
overlay
mean,
or something.
from Lake Murray Boulevard all the way to Thames Valley, that's all business. And from Lake Murray Boulevard all the way to Fork Avenue, that's all business.
And all this does is allow zero lot line, 2-story, 3-story buildings. You can have retail downstairs, office upstairs, or
Office upstairs.
residential, and that kind of 2-story, 3-story type
I
construction.
mean, if the bank wanted to, the bank could change their building, put lofts up on top and
Right now, they couldn't.
but,
Yeah, if they did that,
Right.
if they, yeah.
right.
Or if they, like I said, if it burnt down and they wanted to rebuild, right now, they'd have to back it up off the thing
Yeah.
and whatever they'd have to do.
Who's going to build this? Who's going to construct this?
We're just setting the zoning up.
This is just a zoning.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
setting the
so,
overlay
I
up.
mean, do we ask the citizens how they felt about this? I mean, has anybody had any workshops or anything on that?
I've talked to the people that own the property. Most of them, not all of them. I think I've talked to pretty much all of them, except maybe one.
So you talked to the Irmo lot company we just sold that
Well,
lot to? Or?
We just added them to the thing, I think the other day when I did Bob's thing. But I've talked to Crater Realty, I've talked to the Mont's property, I've even talked to those people back there at the back, but again,
That's what I'm saying. You talked to the lot company that you just sold that property to?
no, like I just said, I just added them the other day when I looked at the map and saw that they were next to it.
Okay, so did you talk to any of the citizens about this? I mean, creating a Irmo Town Center here? I mean, I just want to see what the people want to do. I don't understand, it's a grandiose plan to change the zoning for something like that and increase the property values in that area, but what is that buying the citizens? What is the citizens getting, having input in this plan?
Well, right now, if somebody buys, just let's say, for instance, the Mott's property, the citizens have no input. The property is zoned. They can sell it tomorrow and clear cut it
Right.
and build something right in the middle if they want to.
That's zone residential, isn't it?
It's, I think it's zoned either neighborhood, commercial, or general.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying it's a house, it's a residential house sitting on there right now, right?
Right.
So it's zone residential, right?
No, it's zoned either neighborhood, commercial, or general commercial.
Okay. So, again, what citizens have talked about this plan that they want to build a town center right here?
This is it. As far as I know, the Planning Commission came up with this idea, and then they've probably gotten some input,
Well,
but this is,
a property owner actually came up with the idea, and then when I started talking to him years ago, and talked to the other property owners, most of them were kind of on board. They just wanted to see more. The Planning Commission came up with some guidelines based on input from the Planning Commissions, but and I was trying to see on here where that property was to see how it's zoned, but
So the question is, does the citizens want us to give 0 lot lines zoning in this particular piece of the Irmo? Have we asked the input got the input of the
I'm gonna ask
citizens?
you, have you? I don't know. If
This
you
is
have,
your idea. I mean, I don't
Right.
know. No, I don't have.
I'm just
I haven't
going on
talked to them. No.
property owners. Yeah. I mean, the same thing with anybody that owns property. If they want to change the zoning, they come to the town and that's just to change the zoning. They don't go ask the citizens, they come
That's
to
what I'm
us.
saying. Did they do that? Did somebody come to you and say they want to change the zoning?
Like I said, a property owner came to me a couple of years ago and then it's kind of been growing from there.
well, I'm getting a little confused here. This big map is what the Planning Commission proposed. So that's already something that has been discussed by members of the Planning Commission. And they've probably contacted businesses.
No, they haven't.
They
just
haven't.
brought
They
it
just
that
came up
night
with
and
it.
said, we want to add this, that, and the other. And that's the problem with that is, I don't think anybody's talked to those people from the town hall down. And I would imagine if I were any of those, I'd say no. Why would I want something if my building's already there? This only covers like the Mott's property, which is mainly undeveloped as far as commercial. And then the properties down this one side, Steve Crater Realty and a few others along there. And I think they were all kind of receptive. I still got to get back with them and show them what more so they can kind of say yay or nay. But I think all of them that I've talked to were like, yeah, that sounds good to me. They still want to know more details, and we won't know that until we get an ordinance. But
Well, just to add those two, add a little more to this. This is really,
well, the only thing
this
right
isn't
there
the
is,
town center, this is just, a little rectangle.
well, it's just trying to set up 0 lot line, 2-story construction down the
Okay,
road.
and who approved the Leeds construction?
I think that was the planning commission's.
Well, all right, does anybody
now
know?
what's-
Okay, my son-in-law builds.
Well, we're not approving
Leeds.
this.
And this is highly sophisticated.
Yeah, we're not approving that. All we're approving is, they just want to
Okay.
know a footprint of where they think
Okay,
it ought
then
to
you
go.
need to make yours bigger.
Well, add what you
Well,
want to
but
it.
look at it, it's a block and a half.
Well, I know what it is.
Well, add
It
some.
covers the park, but you don't want to
Crawl
do it in the
before you
park.
walk.
Well,
Show me what part you want, because that's the park right there.
maybe that, just
That's the
add-
town hall.
Well, I would definitely add the town hall.
So if our building burns down, you want us to not
Yes,
be able
all
to
right.
build it back?
We need it to,
If this building, if that building
Town hall's
catches on
kinda
fire,
dilapidated.
fire department won't be there in time to put it out, because that is old wood. and
That's
it's-
old,
talking
so
about
is
this one?
town hall, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's kindling.
It'll burn quick.
That thing
Well,
is
bite your
gone.
tongue, bite your tongue.
Well, I'm
want
not
that to happen.
wishing anything, but that's
See-
what would happen.
And then this property right here, where is that? That's the police department, I think.
It's conforming.
Let's see.
That's the police department.
That's the police department right there. That's Young's Chapel. That's that. This is,
Well, why don't you ask them to redo this a little bigger or a little smaller?
well, because they asked us to decide. And,
Oh, I'm telling you, it needs to be between this and this.
well, then you need to make a motion as to what you want. and
I
we'll
make
talk
a
about that.
motion that the planning commission's map be a little smaller or your map be a little larger.
Well, let me just show you something.
Oh,
Why don't we ask the planning
This-
commission to rethink this
I
and
know.
come up with
I
something a
think
little bit
we
more?
should.
Well, they have thought about it a lot. That's why they
Why
sent
don't
it
you
to
ask
us
the
so we
planning
can.
commission and ask the
That's the
citizens
park.
what
You
they
don't want to
want?
put it there.
I know.
That is Kim Stanley's office building. That's that one.
Ask citizens for that thing.
Why shouldn't they be included?
Because they're already built.
I know they're already built, they look good.
I know. So
Make
why
it
would you
part of
want
the town
to
center.
put it on those? If they burn down, he's got to move his building. I don't think he's going to be happy with moving his building.
I don't care. I mean, that's, okay.
And I think same thing. We could add this part here, but now that that's been sold, I don't know that those people want to do that. So you got the town park, you got the police department somewhere right in here.
And you're gonna have the fire department there too, right?
And you go,
Yeah,
well, the
fire
fire
department
department's
would be
across
there,
the
too.
street. They already did theirs, so I wouldn't put it on their property. This is Pope Davis. I wouldn't put it on that. That's Maurice's. I wouldn't put it on that.
I'd just forget the whole thing.
Well, I don't think we should.
Well,
I
this
think
is-
before we
Well-
allow somebody to come in and tear down and build a standalone building, we need to have this so we can have that
Okay.
overlay built. But now, again, once everything goes to them, it comes back to us once they get it all drawn up and wrote up.
Okay.
They just want a footprint from us to start with.
I think you ought to tell them what I said.
Well, again, we can
yeah.
adjust that. I think you go bigger, not smaller.
Yeah, but the bigger you make it,
See, because
unless
this is
someone's
too
willing to
big.
go talk to all those people and say, here's what we want to do.
Well, you like to do that.
I've already talked to the ones I think it ought to be, and that's it. I'm not
Well,
talking to the
okay, look at this Woodrow Street right here is being developed right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, they just bulldozed a
Yeah.
whole bunch of trees the other day.
and I doubt they would want to do a zero lot line for a medical office building. Neither would all those businesses that are already there and got parking in the front.
Well,
So I don't think it applies to all those places. The only thing I was looking at is the vacant land or undeveloped land or land that could be commercially
did you tell
developed
the planning
again.
commission that?
Mhm.
Did they not listen?
Well, they started out with theirs going all the way down Columbia Avenue and all the way down Lake Murray until they started realizing, oh, we don't need to do that. And they, anyway,
I think to ask them to revise it and then let's look at it again, or we'll meet with them or whatever.
Yeah.
Or ask the
Have
citizens.
them come and make a presentation in
Ask-
front of the
right,
people.
ask the citizens what they want,
And let
you
them
know,
get
let
some-
them
get
have
some
some
input
input
that
in
way.
this.
Y'all come look, yeah, you can come look. I'll bring it to you.
well, the reason they sent it to us is so we'd give them something so they can go back to work. That's all they want is something to go to work on. Where to put this thing and how to overlap it. So you make any motions to amend or change or
Yeah.
something concrete? Not,
It is concrete. Theirs is too large an area.
well, mark off what you don't want on theirs.
Well, I don't know yet. I haven't investigated. Look, this is your town center, and this is the planning commission. If you want me to do it, I'll go do it. But I hadn't looked into this. I just know the size doesn't make sense.
It makes sense because it covers
Okay.
town park. That's
I
all
think-
it's supposed to cover. Is
I
around
think,
there.
Ms. Conner, I think you need to make sure that that we want to do a town center like that. I mean, what you're talking about doing is basically,
Because it's pretty stringent here.
Yeah,
What's
I
going to be
mean,
there.
you know, is
I
that
don't
something
think it
that we
is.
want to
Pretty
do,
much
or something that's
2-story, 3-story height,
Leads,
and
zero lot
well,
lines and?
again, that is their stuff. When it comes to us, we can take whatever we want to out of the ordinance.
Okay.
They're just kind of throwing all this together and saying, this is what the planning commission members came up with.
And then the biggest question is, who's going to build this? Is it going to be the town building this, or
No.
some investors are going to be building
No.
this?
it'll be a zoning regulation.
Yeah, it'd just
Yeah,
be a zoning,
same,
and
but-
here's what you applied.
But who's, fine, it's a zoning regulation, but what developer is going to come and want to do that?
Don't know.
The same one that would buy and build whatever's already approved. Anybody that wants to buy it and build. Same as Douglas property, anybody wants to buy it and build. We don't choose who goes in, we don't pick them, whoever owns the property does, and they
Well,
just
you
go by
picked,
the
you
zoning.
picked the type of building going in there. I mean, you got diagrams of townhomes and stuff like that in here. That's telling somebody what you want to see in there, right?
So, any more discussion? I don't hear any concrete amendments or
I'd
motions
just
or
like the
changes.
planning commission to come and make a
Well,
presentation.
they will once they get through with their plan, but they're not through with it.
Then why are we?
Then why are we looking at
Because
it?
they wanted us to look at it and come up with a footprint. That's all they wanted us to do, is see where we thought we needed to be so that they get back to work on. Because they were getting too big and too small, and instead of them making that decision, they asked us to make that decision
If you went
as
with
to
this
how
through
big the footprint.
Lift this off. Does that do it?
Because they were
So
having,
what you,
Yeah.
basically what they want to do is take existing
Man.
buildings that could burn up, get destroyed, or be sold, and then be replaced by something that wouldn't be in the general description of what we already have,
no,
and make some ordinances to limit what can be built in their place.
what they're coming up with is a central business district overlay that covers that property that's on a map, whichever footprint we come up with. And when somebody builds in that area, instead of them tearing down the property, let's just say they buy the Mott's property, which is right over there. Instead of them tearing it down and putting the Shoney's right in the middle of it and parking lot all around it, they would build zero lot line, wide sidewalks, 2-story, 3-story buildings. That would be what would be allowed to be built there. And then on Lexington Avenue, from Woodrow Street down to Moores, everything in that area would be zero lot line. Or, I think there's two options. You can build, and I'm gonna just say 20 foot, I don't know what the distance is, but whatever Center Realty is off the road, let's just say it's 20 foot, they can build right there where they are, but go up 2
So
stories,
basically
3
what they're doing is they're doing what was done in Pawleys Island, no, not Pawleys Island, Edisto Beach years ago. They limited the height of buildings.
And what's in Chapin on Boundary Street, where they said, okay, you can build 2-story, 3-story buildings up to the parking, you can have the parking in the rear instead of parking in the front, you can have all that.
The best example is on Lady and Hugh G.
Yeah.
Street. It's called Renaissance Plaza.
Kind of the same
I
stuff.
built that. The whole thing.
Mr.
But right
Mayor.
now, somebody can't do that because we don't allow it at all. We can come up with a zoning, and somebody can apply that to their property. But the overlay says this is going to be the central business district. This overlays whatever existing ordinance is there now, and this is what's going to be allowed in that area. So instead of people clearing land and building the standalone, now they're going to build the 2-story, 3-story buildings, kind of like Boundary Street, or like Kathy's referring to,
Why don't
in a defined area right
And you're
around.
only talking about one block.
we have
too.
their email addresses, the planning commit, I could email them what I thought. If they
Well-
want to know.
I think, like I said, they got 7 people, and they all have 7 ideas. So in order for them to move forward, they said, send it to
Funnel it down.
planning or town, let them decide, send it back to us, and then we'll finish it up. Kind of the gist of it.
So, in looking at, Vi, I don't know if you can put up the planning commission proposed town center. Okay, good. So, if we were to take, if you're on Woodrow Street there, and you take the very right portion of that, and you would eliminate that, is that enough?
You might have to take Town Hall off. That's the next.
Well, and then you got 3 blocks around Lake Murray Boulevard with all these existing businesses. That's why they're not on there. Because I don't think, who wants to tell
Sure.
Pope Davis and Maurice's and the furniture store and that little pet supply, veterinarian office.
That furniture store doesn't exist anymore. It's a flooring.
Right.
business.
Yeah, flooring, yeah.
Yep.
And then you got the old chamber building there.
Why
So you got
did
all
they-
these buildings that are already there.
Why'd the planning commission put it on there then?
Well,
I think
I
this
think-
was a compromise between, like I say, putting everything on Columbia Avenue and everything.
see,
on Lake
again,
Murray.
they're trying to anchor whatever development they're doing around the town park. So they're using that as the anchor, and
Not necessary.
they're coming up with an idea here that possibly they could develop those spots. And I mean, honestly, a developer could come in, say to Pope Davis, say to the other businesses there, we want to buy you out. We want to be able to develop this.
Correct.
They could.
The only problem is if before a developer comes in and Pope Davis burns down and it's over a certain percent, now they got to go by this new guideline, which I think is unfair and unjust to them, when all we're trying to do is create a town
Well, I'll tell you this: we're
center
building
around the town park.
We're building the fire station right there. If that place burns down with that fire station right there,
Well, it could be a tornado too, but anything, if it gets,
I'm just saying.
if it gets
I'm
over
just saying.
50%, then, and that's why I think the more you keep off existing businesses, the better off you are, because once you start adding them and something happens, then
Sure,
you
sure.
kind of,
Well,
whereas these other places, part of that's a vacant lot right there. That's a vacant lot, that's a house that's going to be sold one day.
when you're pointing, I can't see where you're pointing.
Well, on Lexington Avenue, go to the purple one.
See, obviously, he thinks this one is the best.
Yeah, because it takes in the smallest amount. You took off the vet center, you took off the floor covering, you took off Pope Davis, you took off Maurice's,
Yeah.
you took off the chamber, and all that stuff along Lake Murray. The only thing you left on Lake Murray is a building that's already zero lot line and a building behind that. The only thing that's on Lexington Avenue is Center Realty, which is kind of in agreement with doing something like this. There's a vacant lot right there where it says Avenue. That's right over here crossing the church. And then you got the center block house. So you're only involving a limited number of property owners to start with. And then after that, if these people in these other areas come in and say, hey, we want to do that, we got the zoning classification, all they got to do is ask. But we're not forcing them into it. Because we're forcing this on these property owners.
Right. So if you were to go one more down on that and just include on Woodrow Street one more
That's
parcel.
Town Hall.
That's the town hall.
That's the town hall.
And I think it's also the little house right over here beside us, the Lindler House.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Lindler House, and then I think
And
that
it's the
little-
Younginer building.
that L-shaped is the, what's the next property down here, Bob? You got the Lindler home, and then that house is back up in the woods. I think it's white or blue.
I know which house, I don't know which one you're referring to. But if I may, you guys are getting way off track. If I might interject one little thing here. All the Planning Commission was requesting was that you approve a town center concept. The map can be changed at any time. But
Okay,
right now, they're in the process of updating the zoning ordinance and the land disturbance plan.
You know, it would have been helpful if 20 minutes ago you told us that.
Well, I tried to butt in a couple times. You guys were just going at it up there. But that's what they need to know for the update for the zoning ordinance and the land disturbance plan. Do you guys want them to look into a town center? They're going to put it in that plan that's going to come back to council for approval. The map is just here to give you a basic reference. It's nothing that needs to be approved tonight. Or
We can give them both maps and tell them, Artie likes this one, Kathy wants something in between this one and that one, or something.
No, we're just going to agree that they can develop a town center.
I think, yeah, that's fine.
That's the end of it.
But that's
I
what
love hearing
we need the
ideas.
approval on
Love
whether you
hearing
think it's a good idea to develop a town center and have restrictions on zoning.
And I don't know if
That's
that name is the right name, because it's whatever, town center, but
Well, in that case, I make a motion that we approve what the Planning Commission wants us to do as
well,
far
I think
as
we got one
developing
on
town
there.
center.
I think, didn't we?
I'm not
I don't
sure you
think we
did.
voted on anything, did we?
No, I think we had a motion. I think I made it and Mark
Did we have
seconded it.
a motion?
Yes,
Okay,
so we just need to vote.
So we need to vote that.
we can vote.
All in
So this
favor?
is for the town, this having a town center. And
Somewhere.
with
That's the original
I think we need to get the citizens involved in this question more than just us
Well,
making that decision.
And that is required by law before we actually have a approval of a new zoning ordinance. We'll have public hearings.
Okay.
They're required.
Thank you.
So this is just saying, go ahead. Let's vote.
This is just saying you get ideas, put them out. Yep.
All righty. All in favor then of the approval to create the town center, whatever you want to call that, do so a show of hands.
Moving on.
Next is an approval to sponsor a trunk or treat event in the community park October. And I thought we had, but I guess we can go from there and see. Is there approval to sponsor that?
So move.
Yeah.
Second.
Is it? Okay. And I'm going to ask Councilman Walker, since he put it on there, what are you wanting us to sponsor or approve?
We need
Or just the
to,
concept to do it?
well, we need to sponsor the trunk or treat, and I think we need to give $1,000 towards that function to a budget for Jada to do it. We can use some of that orchestra money that we got, to put it on.
What's it gonna be spent on?
Whatever they need to spend it on.
Well,
For advertisement, candy.
Are they shaking their head?
I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, if they say, no, we don't need it, then they don't need it. But, I mean, the town needs to sponsor this event in the park. We just sponsor the event in the park.
And I think we have, and I think Bob was going to put it on the, whatever you call it.
We are. We're going to promote it on the website and
Yeah.
send it out in the listserv. Also put it on Facebook to
Good.
help
Okay,
promote
so
it.
the town's going to sponsor it then. The town's going to be a sponsor of this.
Promoting it.
Okay.
we're promoting it, not sponsoring, so to speak.
Well, if we sponsor it, then that means they don't have to worry about getting insurance and all that stuff.
Well, no, I think we figured out if they weren't selling alcohol or something, or wouldn't X amount of people or something like that, then you didn't need it.
Alcohol's a good
They're
idea.
covered anyway, aren't they? If
If
you,
they're not selling alcohol and if it's not over a certain amount of people. And I don't know what that number is, and I don't think we do. It's just when it gets large, then it's required.
Well, the
Like a
National
band.
Night Out was, 1,000 people out there? Does that qualify as being too large?
Well, that was put on by the town police department.
That was a
would be
town
covered.
function, and it fell under the town's umbrella.
That's what I want to do, a town function trunk or treat.
Well, this would be, council's already tentatively approved them having that out there, so it is under our umbrella. As long as they're not selling liquor, no problem. Big party.
no margaritas.
So do we need this approval, or is it already approved, or?
You guys were okay with it when she gave her presentation? We're good.
We're good.
Well, we got to approve it, yes.
I think we already had, because
Well, we had a motion and a second. We're going
Right.
to vote on it or not. That's the question.
All right, well, we're going to discuss something then. I just have one problem. Not that I have a problem with Jada. My church does this every Halloween. But
Our church does too.
if it's official sponsored by the town, that opens doors to many other groups that want to do the same thing. I think it was Chester, South Carolina, that sponsored some religious group, and the next thing you know, the witches and the warlocks wanted their day. That's the only thing. That's the only thing. I think if we officially put it out there, if we endorse it or condone it, any citizen can have a gathering in the park.
Yeah.
And if we say that's fine, then that's as far as I think the town ought to really go before we open the door that might throw some liability in our laps.
With the witches and warlocks.
Yeah, I don't want to mess with those witches and warlocks.
So just leave it as is. Is that?
If we approve it,
Leave it as it is. We've already reserved the
Right.
picnic for
but
them.
if we vote on approving it, does that mean you got to do all the rest of them from now on out that way, or you just leave it alone and say we've already done it?
There's nothing else required, but Mr. Walker, by sponsoring, if he wanted to give money or something, I mean, that's why it's on the agenda, I assume.
So if we're not going to give money, then we would disapprove it?
Just withdraw the motion.
Withdraw the motion.
But we do not wish to discourage
No.
y'all from, you need to keep up these ideas. These are good. Good, good.
So you want to remove your?
It does.
But you don't wanna approve this thing or not? is the
Well, I
question.
think what I'm hearing from Bob is
Just
we
vote on it.
need to.
Well, then vote on it then. Don't vote on it. Don't approve it.
We're setting a precedent. We're setting a precedent here.
Yes, we're approving a town function.
Well, we've already
Trunk or
done
treat.
that.
All
Like
right, well
Bobby
then
said,
vote
we've
on
already done
it.
that.
Vote on it up or down.
Well, my opinion would be to vote no, since we've already approved it, we don't need to do it again, and that would, I don't know. But they can still do it, I guess.
We'll call a vote.
All in favor then of approval of the thing, do so a show of hands.
Trunk or treat, yeah.
All opposed?
But we did approve it.
Yeah, we
No,
already.
we
approved it.
didn't. We're doing it right now.
Well,
No.
no, we're not.
According to Bob, we just approved it a while ago when he said he was gonna do it. All opposed?
Wait a minute.
You gotta vote.
How many?
No, I don't know which way to, okay. Have we already approved
You
it?
can rescind your
Yes,
second,
we-
and that'll
I
clear it
did.
up.
I
Okay.
did.
Well, Kathy rescinded her second, then we only got a motion, and we ain't got a second.
Wait a minute. You already voted on it. Hold on. You either voted or you didn't vote. You called for the vote. Did we not vote or not, Kathy?
I'm not voting.
If you're not voting, you're voting against it.
I rescinded my second. I want her to do.
We already voted on it. We just had a vote.
We
can't
agreed.
send
I
it now.
think what
This is simple.
I think what
You wanna
Councilman
approve it or
Walker was
not?
trying
Could
to do
I
is
ask our attorney to give us a little
Well, wait a minute,
guidance here as far as what precedent this would set up that we might have a problem later? I mean,
This is incredible, man. This is not.
This does.
It's
set
not
a
hard.
precedent.
it's
And
not.
It's not setting a precedent. You're approving this lady to do a function in our town.
We've
park.
already approved the lady to do the
Well,
function.
then vote on it then. Say,
Why
yes,
do we
we
need to vote?
approve.
We've already approved it.
we've
but
Because
let's
because
let
we
Eric
seconded
give
and
us.
voted it.
We're gonna either move on, or we're gonna let Eric speak, or we're gonna move on. Do you wanna?
I believe the approval was to sponsor. You've already approved this occurring. So if you want to approve to sponsor, i.e. pay for, underwrite, whatever, then approve to sponsor. If you don't want to sponsor it, but you've already approved it, then don't approve to sponsor.
Does it set a precedent?
I think if you were trying to set a precedent, you'd just be having a redundant and duplicative vote on something you've already
Right.
done.
All right, then I'm going to amend this. This will be easy. Kathy, you got a second. Do you want to leave your second on the table?
For
Just-
this?
just-
No, I rescinded it
We'll
10
just
minutes ago. Oh.
leave it on the, I'll make a second then.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now, I am going to amend this that we sponsored in an amount of $1,000. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor
Are
of
we going
spending
to discuss
1,000?
your amendment?
Well, do you want to? I think we discussed it, but.
Well,
they're not asking
Jada
for
said she
$1,000.
doesn't need any money
Right.
because
But if
each
we vote it
person-
down, then we can vote it down and then it's done.
each person is going to load their trunk up with candy and whatever.
So we got a motion on the table for 1,000. Let's just vote it down and be done with the whole thing. How about that?
It's fine with me.
And let me get my head straight where I was. All in favor of spending $1,000, do so with show of hands.
So you have to vote on the amendment?
Well, that's what I'm voting on, the $1,000 amendment. Barry?
I did.
Who's on first?
So, all in favor of the amendment with $1,000, do so a show of hands.
To amend it to,
The $1,000. We're going to vote to spend $1,000.
no, I don't want to spend $1,000.
Was it? You have seconded it.
Yeah, I don't want to spend it.
Lord.
So all in favor, vote yea, vote nay. Who wants to spend 1,000? All opposed? Do so a show of hands.
Okay.
All
All
right,
right,
so
now
that's
get back to
dead.
the original motion.
All in favor then of approving the sponsors? Now we just vote it down because we're not going to approve it, a sponsor. Do so a show of hands.
Stop filling the vote in, man.
All opposed?
Okay.
Opposed for sponsorship?
Yeah, because we just
I
said we were
voted
gonna
for
sponsor.
sponsorship, so
All right.
you
But if
voted
they
not
need
to
some
sponsor.
money, let us know.
Right.
So, wait a minute.
But they've already
So what
been
was the
approved to
vote
do
on
it,
that?
so
What
we're
was the
just
vote
not
on that?
sponsoring.
That's the.
What was the
that's
vote on that?
I want to say.
4-1
No, I know.
with you.
To
and
not to sponsor it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And next one is the
So,
motion to rescind the appointment of Judge Becky Adams as our town judge. And the reason this is on here, because I think if we just rescind that, we don't have to worry about that, and then we go back to doing what we were doing earlier. So I make a motion that we rescind that. Is it seconded?
I'll second it.
And this is again from an uneducated country folk guy.
I know,
But-
that's why I'm leery of it.
If we rescind it and we pass the three readings of the ordinance to add that clause, then we just turn around and contract out. If we don't get that passed by the end of, what is it, October or September? September, then she has a contract with us already that we will just extend until we get it all done. Plus, we have on here the salary, which we will be negotiating. But I think that just clears it up. We don't have to worry about it. We just take it off the table and we go back to contracting. And then when we get ready to do third reading, if Eric says we can contract and appoint, then we'll do them both to cover our bases. And then let somebody figure out whatever. Any discussion? And I've talked to Becky and she was fine with this, doing it this way too.
That's the judge.
Yes, Judge Adams, yes. Any discussion? All in favor then to rescind that appointment of Judge Adams, do so with show of hands. All opposed? Next is presentation by citizens. This
Nope.
is,
No,
We got to appoint
oh,
somebody to the
appointment to the
advisory
Tax Advisory Committee.
and, okay, may I make a motion?
Yes,
That we nominate Debbie Turbyville.
I'll second that.
This, okay, this is a very nice lady. She lives in Hill Creek, South Carolina.
and she Joe's Joe's wife?
No,
She lives in
He
Irmo,
died.
South Carolina.
did?
he died, Joe Turbyville. Yeah, this is,
No, not that one, the one that lives over in Hill Creek that owns the Zaxby's.
no,
That's not the same?
that's not her husband's name.
Okay,
wait a second. Is this one appointment or two?
One,
just one.
I thought it was two in there.
well, I'm just nominating
We've only
this
got
lady.
one name.
We have two openings. One is for a at-large and one is for a hotel, restaurant.
The hospitality, but we also have Mr. Scoville requesting to be reappointed. His appointment's
That's
up.
right.
Well, she'd be at large then.
She's at
Yeah.
large.
And he would be at large.
She just retired from District 5. And I think she's working with a real estate team on like part-time. But she was anxious to contribute to the town. And I've known her a couple of 3-4 years now, and she's a very good lady. I strongly recommend her.
Did she used to serve on an orchestra?
No,
What was that lady's name that came off? Debbie something, wasn't it?
it was Debbie something.
Debbie Thomas is on the
Was she part of the ladies' club?
ladies.
She's never been on any
Club.
town. That's
Okay.
why she wants to do this, which is admirable.
So is this two positions or one?
This is for the at-large. I don't-
Okay, the other
is for
one
the
is
vacant.
at large
The other
also,
one-
isn't it?
I don't have anybody with others.
No, I'm saying the other guy that was,
The other guy's already on it. And
he's already on, he wants to be reappointed. He's at large
Okay.
too, isn't he?
Well, this is the at-large one.
Right.
This is for the vacancy.
But he's not at large. He is in the industry that we need this.
No, he's at large.
We have two at-larges. Mr. Scoville is the other one, and then Wendy just moved out of town. That's why she's
Yeah,
not out.
that's the vacancy.
So we have 2 openings and 2 people.
Correct.
Okay.
We have 3 openings because we still got a restaurant open, but we got nobody to fill that one.
You've got to be in that field in town.
Yeah.
And what's her name was trying to find somebody, but I don't think she has yet.
Susan Crosby's on
Yeah.
is our other hospitality.
I think she was
Okay,
looking for
so you nominated her. I nominated Clint Scoville.
No, we got to vote on her first, right?
Well, since there's 2 seats, we can do them both.
Okay.
I mean, you can if you want to.
Okay.
You need to make a motion to amend her motion and add this name.
What?
Because her motion is for Debbie Turner.
I made a nomination. I didn't make a motion. I made a
You got
nomination.
to make a motion to nominate. I'm just saying, you got to make a motion in a second in order to nominate.
You don't need a second to nominate, but I'll do it for you.
But you need to make a motion to amend the motion on the table, because there is a motion on the table and a second. So that needs to be amended, or we can do them separately.
Let's keep it simple and
Let's
just do
keep
it separately.
Did he apply, did we have any paperwork on him?
I
He's
think you
already
told
on it.
Bob.
Huh?
You told Bob he wanted.
Okay, okay.
So there's a motion on there to appoint Debbie Turner to Wendy's vacant
Debbie
seat.
Turbeville.
Turbeville. I can't read my writing. All in favor then of her, do so with show of hands. And is there a motion to nominate Clint Schofield to his
I
seat?
nominate him.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Who's Clint Scoville?
He's already on the thing.
Oh,
term
okay,
expires. His term
okay.
expires.
He's fine.
So, all in favor then of reappointing Clint Scoville back to his seat, do so with show of hands.
Okay.
Now, presentation by citizens. This is where anyone who would like to address council on anything, whether it's on the agenda or not, may do so at this time. All we ask is you give us your name and address for the record.
George Glassmeyer, 100 Denbeck Road. After enduring the agony of watching council deal with items I and J recently this evening, I'm reminded of a quote attributed to the late President Eisenhower when he said, don't just do something, stand there. And
Don't just do something, what?
don't
Stand
just
there.
do something, stand there.
Okay, got it, okay.
So I would encourage you to keep that concept in mind at future meetings. Mr. Brown reported earlier that we're starting to get billed the increased rate by the Richland County Jail for inmates. I would ask that you direct the administrator, who hasn't already, to investigate the possibility of contracting with the Lexington County Jail for our Richland County arrestees. I believe the federal government already does that for federal inmates, and we may get a lower contract rate from them than what we're paying Richland.
I think Lexington County Jail's got a capacity problem.
The money changes a lot of capacity.
Okay, well, he can check on that.
Well, yeah, I'd like you to look into that. Finally, there's a coming up here on the agenda shortly is a discussion of the town court system. Presumably, that's been precipitated by the presentation I made at the last meeting, showing that the cash that our municipal court is hemorrhaging every year, at least $85,000 a year, as my numbers proved. Mayor Bob was good enough here to do a evaluation as to the feasibility of that, which I read, and it indeed may not be feasible to do that. If nothing else, I would ask the takeaway from my presentation to council is just how much money that's hemorrhaging, and to look at ways to preferably increase revenue and both decrease expenses as well, to try to bring that more in line. We don't need to be spending between $85,000 and $100,000, losing between $85,000 and $100,000 a year to operate municipal court. There's got to be a way to to increase revenue and reduce expenses, I would ask that you focus on those goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else see none? Next item is the discussion of the court system. And I think Bob did look into a bunch of information, and he can probably explain a lot of it too, but basically what he said was, and I think what we found out is, if we close our court system, the magistrates will not handle the town court cases, such as the cutting of the grass, the parking in the yard, the sewer, and everything else. So we would still have to have a court system for that. Now you eliminated a whole bunch of the revenue, and so you still got a court with expenses to incur, plus very little revenue to cover it. So the dollars would probably get even worse. The magistrates can take on the cases that are state violations, from my understanding, but they're probably not going to do it for free. They're probably going to charge us, and to make it worthwhile, they're probably going to charge us a good dollar amount. And I don't know that it would be any savings there. Plus, if they wanted to send those court cases to Pillion or Eastover or Hopkins or wherever they wanted to send them to, Batesburg, Leesville, depending on which county it's in, that's where the people, the residents, would have to go, plus our police officers. And in order to send the police officers there, we're going to either pay them overtime or we're going to lose them on the street here while they're gone. So there was a lot of stuff like that that came out of all that that sounded like it probably wasn't beneficial for us to do that.
Plus code enforcement.
Yeah, plus we'd still have to have it for code enforcement, so we'd still have to have a court. Yes, the court system hasn't made money in years, so to speak. I can remember when this discussion came up about 2007, and because we had gone from either breaking even or barely making money to losing like $30,000 a year at that time. But again, our public works doesn't make any money. Our police department, so to speak, doesn't make money. So we can't base everything on whether it makes money or not. That's part of our government. That's part of the services that we provide. And I think the more convenient we offer to our citizens, the better it's going to be. I just don't know that sending it out there anywhere. But I felt like since it was brought up to us, we need to put it on the agenda and discuss it and let everybody say what they wanted to say about it.
Excuse me. Can you resend me that email? From you? No, him. Okay, it's dropped off, so I couldn't. Thank you.
Anybody else?
So Bob, that email you sent us with this information on it, you shared it with Mr. Glassmeyer too? So what was he referencing that he had gotten information from Mayor Bob? I mean, Mayor, I don't understand.
We went to see him.
Oh, okay. He went to see you? So he went to see you and discuss this before you discussed it with us? Is that what
No, it was after the.
First time I heard about it, when you stood up here during the last council meeting and said, hey, I'm going to take a look at the court system.
No, I'm talking about the report you gave us about how we can't do it, the feasibility study. No, he just mentioned that he got information from you.
It wasn't included in the email. It just went to council and Eric.
Okay. I was just making sure I didn't hear it incorrectly, that's all. Thank you.
Any other discussion? So if nobody says to put it on the agenda and pursue it further, it's kind of a dead issue, is that?
Yep.
Okay.
It was a good idea, but.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it just won't work. I mean,
No.
once you start looking at it.
But we appreciate the idea.
And discussion of the municipal judge salary. I think if I remember, Bob said that we had paid a previous judge $36,000 for being the full-time judge, and I think we had figured out if we contract out for a full-time magistrate judge, in order to keep it at $36,000, so that we would be paying the same thing for right now. We would have to pay a judge roughly $28,135, and then we'd pay the county $7,864 roughly to cover the benefits. That would equal to 36. I think Bob wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that, and that's kind of what it would be. He would negotiate that with Becky and get it all straight and make sure everybody's happy, but it's somewhere in that ballpark. And then we would be paying the same thing, 36. And I don't know if anybody wants to add anything to that, change anything to that, or make it higher, or make it more. But if we wanted to keep it at the same, then that'd be roughly where we'd
I
be.
understand.
So are y'all fine with that? As far as Bobby understands? And you can talk to Becky and make sure everything's straight. And have that, I guess, ready by the third reading.
Well, you'll have to approve the salary increase.
Well, it wouldn't be an increase because we're already paying 36.
No.
It'd be an increase to her on her contract.
For the contract.
Yeah, we'll have to prove that, yeah. But it won't be a dollar increase as far as our records and books.
We got it.
Yeah.
We got it. Okay.
We're with you.
All righty. Is that good? Next is executive session, none there.
I so
And
move.
next is adjournment. And a second.
I'll second. Yeah.
All in favor? Aye.